everyone, PushingUpRoses here, and today we're talking about David the Gnome. This was a Spanish animated television series created by BRB International, though my introduction to the show was when it ran on Nick Jr. in the late 1980s. David the Gnome was my foray into fantasy. It details the life of the gnomes, specifically of one David the Gnome and his wife, Lisa. David is played by Tom Bosley, aka Sheriff Tupper from Murder, She Wrote, and probably more notably the dad from Happy Days. Lisa is voiced by Jane Woods, who's done a variety of voice work for cartoons and games, and the show is narrated by Christopher Plummer.
Let me show you a secret world, the stuff that dreams are made of.
Captain Von Trapp.
There's nothing to be afraid
The
of.
cartoon is based on the book Gnomes, written by... and illustrated by... You know, we don't have some of these sounds in English, so I don't care to butcher these Dutch names, but yes, here you are. Because I'm a snob in regards to fantasy, I bought the deluxe edition. To say this show is based on this book is an understatement. Some of these scenes are straight from the book. In fact, this has to be the most accurate adaptation I've ever seen. Look at the houses here and compare them to the book. Even the clothes they wear, the animals they befriend and keep as pets. This show does an inspiring job at using the source material to create something unique and entertaining, though honestly, the source material provided it with anything and everything they could possibly need to develop a show about these gnomes and their entire world. I will be discussing the television series in this video, so let's get right into it. First thing of note, the theme song.
Look around you. There are many things to see.
I will never get tired of this song. Put this on a record and I will buy the shit out of it. Take my money. Another thing you might notice is the high quality of the art and animation. It's pretty detailed for a children's show. The painted backgrounds are gorgeous and look at these hands. Let's see here. The book says that gnomes are not very formal or shy, so let's see how the show introduces them to us.
Oh, good evening. I'm David, son of the famous Tim of Uppsala.
Welcome to my dick. Geez, they weren't kidding about this not being formal stuff, huh?
That's really why I invited you here today. Isn't it time we got together?
Like, in the tub? Well then, I wasn't expecting this, but alright, I'm down with bath time. The first episode establishes how David and Lisa lead their daily lives as forest gnomes and what kind of characteristics they possess. For example, to show affection, they rub noses. So, how do they consummate? And why does rubbing noses sound like someone is trying to comically rub wax out of their ears?
This charming and efficient housewife, who's 399 years old and is still to me the most beautiful and enchanting woman in the world, is my wife, Lisa.
Relationship goals, right there. Now, don't you go thinking for a second that this show doesn't have a message to present.
What's the idea of coming into our peaceful forests and blasting away with your noisy guns at every animal you see? And of course, you make the water so dirty the fish can't live in it. And the air so full of smoke, nobody can breathe.
God, David, can't you put away your conservationist agenda for 2 seconds? Even the season 1 intro has a little, quote, disclaimer in the opening song that says nature is the series' protagonist. It's not a heavy-handed message, it's conducted eloquently and effectively. A lot can be learned from David's appreciation for the environment and living a humble but fulfilling life. I mean, yeah, I'm still gonna eat steak, but my god, if somebody doesn't save these fucking bunnies from a flood, I'm gonna be traumatized. Even though David cares greatly about the preservation of nature, he is somehow not anti-smoking. That's right, kids, save the forest, then toke a lot of shit in your spare time. In fact, smoke in the forest, that seems safe. There's even an episode where David is trying to help 2 deer who got their antlers tangled up, but he gets impatient with their antics and takes a smoke break.
Before I start, I'll have a smoke. I think I should give you two a little time to think about this.
A lot of the plots from these episodes also come straight from the book and involve saving animals from horrible predicaments, like this badger who hurts his eye.
This badger was just out for a stroll when he accidentally ran into a sharp-pointed stick.
Okay, sorry, I feel bad for laughing, but that sound he makes is just so hilarious.
He was just out for a stroll when he accidentally ran into a sharp-pointed stick.
Oh my god. Okay, sorry. Gnomes can communicate via telepathy. When somebody is in trouble, they can alert David, and his fox, Swift, can get him to the emergency... Swiftly. If David and Lisa need to travel farther, they ride by bird. David is a doctor who is commonly called to help aid animals and sometimes even humans, though not every human in the series is aware that gnomes exist. In this series, only specific humans come into contact with them. The show is refreshingly mature for children and can delve into more serious subject matter. The episode I'm showing here is about a guy who catches wild birds by brushing a glue-like substance onto trees and grabbing them when they get stuck while they're hunting for bugs. He then takes them back to his pet store to sell. David goes on a mission to save the birds and ends up freeing them from their cages. It definitely gets a little dramatic. Hell, it almost turns into an adaptation of The Birds. This definitely touches on greed, selfishness, and man's lack of appreciation for nature, though some of the intensity is lost due to these attempted animal sounds. The voice acting in the English dub is generally pretty good, especially Tom Bosley's performance as David, but having people try to make the animal sounds is just cringy.
What is it with them?
The episode that sticks out the most to me is called The Shadowless Stone. For some reason, I think I've seen this one more than the others, and I can recall the story and some of the visuals really well, despite not having seen it in 25 years or so. David and Lisa are called to the Gnome King's palace to help with an emergency. They're greeted by Tim. Good old spastic Tim.
Hello, Tim.
It's you! Welcome, make yourself at home!
You know that instance of mass hysteria in Tanzania where 3 girls couldn't stop laughing and it spread and turned into like an epidemic? It was started by this guy. The king explains that trolls have stolen an enchanted item called the Shadowless Stone and asks David and Lisa to retrieve it. It feels like a grander adventure than the other episodes because it doesn't have to do with helping animals or learning more specifics about the gnomes. It kind of feels like a consolidated Lord of the Rings.
Look, David, you can see the water, but you can't hear it.
Please, dear, don't act like a hick in front of the king.
Jesus, David, did you just call your wife a hick? Keep in mind the original language for this show was Spanish, so perhaps a different word was used, but hick was the closest translation to it. Either way, sheesh. Meet the trolls, the closest thing to an antagonist this series has. Just like real-life trolls, these guys feel that they are more clever than anyone in the entire world, yet their actions always exhibit stupidity and clumsiness.
What is it with them?
Despite their questionable level of intelligence, they're magical and possess sorcery more powerful than the gnomes. They have an inclination towards torturing them, even killing them in gruesome ways, but the gnomes have come up with clever methods of warding them off. The gnomes, being a pacifist people, do not go out of their way to hurt the trolls or seek them out. In fact, gnomes only use magic when they're in trouble or need to help somebody else in trouble. Trolls are really the only creature they don't get along with. However, in this episode, a baby troll is stuck on a rock in the middle of a river that his mom can't get to, and David decides to help him even though they are foes. Alright, let's talk about one of the more popular discussions regarding David the Gnome. The finale. Allow me to preface this by saying that we meet David and Lisa at 399 years old. The book says that gnomes live to be about 400, as the show mentions as well. This means the series is really about David and Lisa's last year on Earth. You may be asking, why even make a show about characters who only have 1 year to live? It's indubitably on purpose. There's a lot of things in this series that mimic real-life situations, both happy and sad, and they're laid out in a way that kids can more easily digest. It may not feel that way now. You might think, I would have been way too young to understand this, but you probably weren't, and kids can handle complex content. I'm not saying you should fire up Cinemax and let your kid take in the birds and the bees and learn about gratuitous sex and violence at age 5, but I am saying that important messages and sad content can be beneficial for young people. I started reading The Exorcist in 5th grade, and look how completely normal and well-adjusted I turned out. I've even restricted my reading on mass hysteria and the occult to 6 nights a week. Alright, let's be serious. There's value in showing children, let's say, less than fluffy content. The final episode of David the Gnome is about David and Lisa's journey to the mountains beyond, their final place of rest. It's a devastating episode, extremely sad and not too dumbed down. I got pretty weepy watching this not long ago. They say goodbye to their pets and oh my god, get the Kleenex.
Go on, run along now, Cricket. Lisa and I are going away forever.
Maybe I could have let him down a little easier. The most heartbreaking part about this episode is not the fact that they're leaving the Earth as living people, but their goodbye to Swift the Fox. I've never seen anything so gut-wrenching, it's truly sad. But don't worry, Swift recovers quickly after running into a female fox who is very clearly interested in him, if you know what I mean. He ends up in a new home with a new gnome, and even though this moment of grief is unrealistically terse, it's intended to show people that your life can go on even with loss. Nothing lasts forever, and that's okay. That is the ebb and flow of life, and learning about mortality is important. Doesn't mean you should teach your kids that people turn into trees when they die, which is what happens when gnomes die, but this presentation does make it easier for them to understand. I was never put off by this ending, neither in childhood nor adulthood. I think it fits in with the rest of the sophisticated content of the series. It's sobering to see something not mawkish or overly goofy among children's television. And I think that's why David the Gnome stands out to me. It's a more serious kids cartoon. The show was preceded by a 1980 made-for-television special called Gnomes, also clearly based on the book, and it was nominated for an Emmy in 1981 for Outstanding Animated Program. There was also a spin-off to David the Gnome called Wisdom of the Gnomes in 1987 that followed a character named Klaus, which kinda just looks like a continuation of its predecessor. A few movies also followed, but to me, nothing can compare to David the Gnome. It has the right amount of sadness, happiness, whimsy, and maturity to spark anyone's interest in these extraordinary creatures. There's only one word in the gnomish language that humans are allowed to know, and that is the word for goodbye, which David says at the end of every episode, and what I will say to you now. Slitsbites!
Slitsbites.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video about David the Gnome. I hope you found it nostalgic. Definitely check out the Gnomes book if you enjoyed this show, it's worth it. Check out the other videos I did in the annotations, or find me on Twitter, Facebook, or Patreon to discuss the merits of teaching children about death. As always, I'll see you guys in the next one.